Okay, this is going to be a reflection on chapter 2 and then an introduction to chapter 3. So, chapter 1, it began with that beautiful nature scene. There was a gentle breeze, there were the slope of the mountains, the sun was going down, there was the calm pool of the river. And then chapter 2 introduces the ranch and the bunkhouse. Now, the bunkhouse is sparsely furnished and it's very impersonal, and there's really nothing there that shows any sign of life actually existing in that bunkhouse. It's just a dark room and a place for men to sleep. There's just the essentials there to sustain life. Now, once the story shifts from the natural setting in chapter 1 to the bunkhouse in chapter 2, things change considerably. Now, Steinbeck contrasts the world of nature with that of the world of men. At the pond, the water is warm, the breeze is gentle, there's light shimmering over the sand. So it's no wonder that George wants to spend the night there instead of going straight to the ranch where he pretty much knows exactly what's going to happen when he gets there. He knows that being around other people is going to be hard for Lenny, as it has been in every other job. So being there in the nice little relaxing area is a nice contrast to the ranch where there's all these characters who've just been beaten down by life and their loneliness and the drudgeful existence that they have. So by juxtaposing the natural scene at the pond with the scene at the bunkhouse, Steinbeck highlights the contrast between the freedom of nature and the unpredictable pattern of humans and their sometimes dangerous ways. So, chapter 2, this is actually the first time that we hear of Crooks and his plight as an isolated black man. His treatment here comes across as quite disturbing. So, they talk about how the boss gave the men a gallon of whiskey for Christmas, and they all decide that they're going to beat up Crooks, basically. It seems that he is used to provide sport and entertainment to the other men for this festive occasion, all at his expense. So Candy, the old guy with the old dog, he actually thinks really well of Crooks, and he says he's a nice fella. However, his relation to the incident and his retelling of the story really shows that real casual racism. The text says that he relishes retelling and recollecting the events of that fight. And then finally, in this chapter, Steinbeck has clearly delineated the lines of conflict and the menace coming from this evil bully, Curly, and the seductive temptation of Curly's wife. And I don't think that we can really villainize Curly's wife. Yes, she is using her feminine wiles to gain attraction from the men. However, we really have to view her in kind of a pitying light. We will, in later chapters, hear more about her background, but the fact that she's never given a name, that she's just Curly's wife, and that she is really looked down upon by the men, including her own husband, because of her good looks and her flirtatious behavior, is, I think, really shows how isolated and lonely of an existence she has, rather than showing her as this just evil temptress. Now, there are two catalysts of fear each time that Curly or his wife appear. Even Lenny, who feels things instinctively, kind of like an animal does, says, "I don't like this place, George. This ain't no good place. I want to get out of here." In the second scene, the reader only has to wait for eventual tragedy. There's so much foreshadowing in these chapters every time Curly or his wife appears. Now, speaking of chapter 3, the majority of this chapter continues to take place in the bunkhouse. Lenny does get some good news. He gets to have one of Slim's puppies. Um, let's hope he doesn't crush it to death like he did with all those mice. More drama unfolds amongst the men, both in terms of their jobs and the increasing conflict with Curly and his wife, and the men and Lenny. So, do expect for there to be tension and actual physical conflict between those characters. So, as you're going through this, I want you to further focus on the theme of loneliness and friendship and how those are developed throughout this. And also consider that theme of the dream that these men have, Lenny and George, that they will own their own ranch, that they will be able to live off the fat of the land, that they will be able to be independent and not have to rely on the treatment of bosses. And that should be that. So I will make another video that you can watch after you've read chapter 3 that will go into more of the analysis of the themes in the chapter. Again, don't just skip straight to the video. That will not help you on the quiz. You've got to read the chapter and then watch the video. So that is that.